Well, here we go, everybody that has joined. Warm welcome, good morning, good afternoon, and for even some, I think it is good evening. Welcome to this webinar titled Building Nutrition Resilience in Fragile Contexts through Humanitarian Development and Peace, or HDP, as we like to refer to it, Nexus Approach. I'm Carmel Dolan, one of the N4D directors, and I am the main facilitator for today's country-led webinar. I want to say that we may not be able to deliver you English to French interpretation as we had hoped, but I think behind the scenes there is still an attempt to make that happen. So please bear with us and we will navigate that technical challenge as best we can. So a nexus approach to nutrition is a pretty weighty subject, and I think it's fair to say that over many years it's been pretty tough to move from the conceptual to realize targets and to move away from what is felt like at times an overload of rhetoric around the nexus approach towards more practical country-based examples really of how it can work to strengthen nutrition resilience in populations facing different forms of fragility and shocks. And I guess we should ask ourselves right now at the start of this webinar, why is a nexus approach so important? And quite simply put, it's because countries want to strengthen their country-led, that local and national service delivery systems within key nutrition relevant sectors to focus on prevention of malnutrition as well as treatment and achieve more sustainable nutrition outcomes in the long run. So I think we have registered for this webinar close to 200 attendees. And I think that probably illustrates just how important this subject is to us all, particularly at a time when greater coordination between HDP systems and actors is even more critical. So we're joined by many country actors, representative of UN and donor agencies, as well as civil society. So I extend a very warm welcome to you all, and I hope you're hearing me very clearly. The webinar is the culmination of a 3-day learning exchange, generously co-hosted by Government of Ethiopia, bringing together nutrition focal points, UN and civil society partners from 3 countries, Niger, Yemen and Ethiopia itself. And I think it's fair to say it's an incredible opportunity for us to hear from country actors about how they are already or are planning to integrate a strong nexus for nutrition approach within their national and subnational multi-sector nutrition action plans. Now, we're not going to have time to get into the specific technical details of the approaches, but I assure you that these have been discussed over the past 3 days in Addis, where our colleagues are sat, and will indeed be reflected in a summary report. Each country, of course, is travelling its context-specific route, but have come together because they share many common opportunities and challenges in perhaps shifting from the rhetoric into a reality and operationalising a nexus approach that suits their particular context. And we in N4D have been privileged to work alongside these country leaders and their partners for several years now, and are convinced that sharing south-to-south learning and influencing the global space, the global north so-called, will actually help countries be better equipped to tackle the technical, political and financial challenges that are confronted today. So I just want to briefly recap on the objectives and the agenda and the process for the webinar. We have just 2 very straightforward objectives. We want to share learning on integrating and implementing a nexus for nutrition approach. And we want to explore how the Global Nutrition Cluster and Sun Movement can provide support and is providing support for country-driven and country-led efforts in this space. We have, in terms of the agenda, just under an hour and a half together. We have broken that into 3 sessions. We're going to start by hearing from our country colleagues who are sat together in Addis Ababa. They're going to share their country-specific and collective learnings, including their perspectives on their global support needs. That will be for around 35 minutes. We're then going to move to a panel discussion with representatives from the global support system who have very kindly agreed to reflect on what they hear in session 1. And that will be a discussion over a 25-minute period. And then we will take questions or clarifications from you, the participants in this webinar, for about 20 minutes. And then I'll briefly run through some of our thinking on next steps before we close this webinar. So in terms of the Q&A session 3, we really encourage you to use the Q&A function to pose your questions, comments, observations throughout the webinar. And when doing this, we would politely ask that you include your name, country, job title, because our associate Francis Mason is going to be keeping a very close eye on these so that we can bring these as best we can into session 3. So you've heard enough from me. I now would like to hand over to my colleague, Chris Leather, who sat in Addis Ababa with our country colleagues. Welcome to you, Chris. Welcome to all of you sat in Addis, and please go ahead and kick us off into session 1. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Carmel. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well, Chris.
Great. Well, as you say, I am here in Addis Ababa with Dr. Sisay from the Ministry of Health in Ethiopia, with Balarabe from the National Platform for Nutrition Information in the Institute of Statistics in Niger, and he's standing in for Dr. Aboubacar from the Ministry of Health, who was unable to participate in the learning exchange this week. And I'm also here with Karima from the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation in Yemen, and you will see and hear from the 3 of them shortly. So we have just finished a wonderfully inspiring country learning exchange. I have to say that there's a strong sense of solidarity, I think, that has been built up between the countries over the last few days. So in this panel discussion, we're going to cover 3 topics. Firstly, what countries have achieved when looking to operationalize a humanitarian development peace nexus approach to nutrition. What are some of the key ingredients for success? And what are some of the major challenges that countries are facing that are holding them back from accelerating and implementing a nexus approach to nutrition? That's the first area of discussion. The second area, our country panelists are going to be telling us some of the key lessons that they have learned from other countries during this learning exchange, and some of the key actions that each country is going to implement following this learning exchange in order to translate lessons into action and into impact for more sustainable nutrition outcomes. And then the third area of discussion that we will have with the country panelists is around what type of support countries are looking for from their partners at national, regional, and global levels, including from the Sun Movement and from the Global Nutrition Cluster. So what support do they need to help accelerate progress in integrating and operationalizing a nexus approach? So without further ado, let's jump straight into the panel discussions. We are all sat around the same table here in Addis, even though it doesn't appear like that to yourselves, but we are all here together. So Dr. Sisay, let me turn to you first with that first question so that you can tell us about some of your key achievements in Ethiopia some of your key ingredients for success, and what are some of the main challenges? Over to you, Dr. Sisay.
Thank you so much, Chris. In Ethiopia, the nutrition-centric humanitarian development peace triple nexus approach has been started back in 2023. We went through a step-by-step approach where we developed a 6-phased approach to operationalize the nexus. The first thing that we did was to conduct the situation analysis and stakeholders consultation to understand how the humanitarian development peace actors are operating, and also how does Nexus has been visualized. So based on the context, the situation analysis and stakeholder consultation, we have started the development of the operational guide and implementation roadmap for the Nexus. And after finalizing the operational guide and implementation roadmap, we moved into the dissemination of guide and validation across the actors, which is a phase 2. Currently, we are in phase 4, where we are rolling out the operational guide and the implementation roadmap. And also, we are doing a lot of capacity building, awareness creation, as well as also piloting in selected areas how the Nexus operationalization will look like. We have to complete in terms of developing a monitoring evaluation system for humanitarian nexus, which is focused. We need to have a very strong advocacy and communication to educate the donors, the partners, as well as also the various stakeholders in the development, humanitarian, and peace space to understand how Nexus will be operationalized as well as also implemented. When we look at the second part of this question is in terms of what are the success factors. I think in Ethiopian case, the very strong government leadership and ownership. Nexus is now jointly led by Ministry of Health, Ethiopian Disaster Risk Management Commission, as well as also Ministry of Peace. So in terms of the success factors, the key success factors are the government leadership and ownership, as well as also the development of the national operational as well as also implementation framework. We have a very strong multi-sectoral coordination where we have already embedded the Nexus operationalization in the Sakota Declaration multi-sectoral operational and also governance framework. Integration of the Nexus operationalization into the existing systems, including the SUN networks, as well as also the multi-sectoral coordination platform. We also developed tools and data-driven decision-making process, especially at the community level, to conduct the context assessment and also need analysis to identify what are the key needs in terms of peace, humanitarian, and development. And of course, the long-term technical partnership and the tier deployment among the partners that we have worked with SF, N4D, as well as also the other key partners like SOS has been very critical for this achievement. Before I conclude, just to share a few challenges, local stakeholders' limited institutional capacity in terms of Nexus operationalization is one of the challenges. We have also a financial constraint, as well as also the modalities of funding still needs to be worked out. In terms of getting a long-term and flexible financing for Nexus operationalization that consists of development, humanitarian, peace action, still a big limitation. And also stakeholders' capacity to operationalize and also integrate the peace element into the planning process is still also a limitation. There are also few coordination as well as also monitoring and evaluation gaps that we have observed during implementation as a challenge. So Chris, these are a few areas in terms of the achievements, the success factors and the challenges from Ethiopian perspective. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Sisay. Now straight over to Karima from Yemen to hear about your achievements and successes and some of the challenges you face.
Thank you so much, Chris, and I hope that everyone hear me very well. Actually, over the last 2 years, we have invested in establishing a practical government-led nutrition nexus model by establishing the government-led nutrition governance structure at the national and subnational level. And this actually to leverage the political and technical leadership and commitment at all levels and layers inside the government, and also with the participation of all the actors from the humanitarian and development levels. And also we have developed, based on this governance structure, we contributed to the development of the national multi-sectoral nutrition action plan and its operational district level MSNAPs, and this to bring the HDP actors together around a joint framework. This achievement is attributed to the strong technical leadership in the Sun Yemen Secretariat and its partners in the government of Yemen and in the other actors, and the commitment to this widely participatory process. This was actually enabled by our committed partners from UNICEF and KFW, and also from our international partners, N4D and the Global Nutrition Cluster, who have been providing a strategic partnership to the national team in Yemen. Actually, the challenge is linked to these achievements. So we have invested in these governance structures at the national and subnational level, but we are wondering about the maintaining of this, the functionality of this governance structure. This is not something forever, but at least we need it operational and functional until we ensure the nutrition integration agenda in Yemen is fully achieved. And also the implementation of the MSNAP and their its district level MSNAPs requires a lot of alignment of the existing investment and the resource mobilization from the domestic resources as well. So we would like actually to ensure their implementation and the contribution from all the actors at the national and subnational level, and also from the donors, the UN, even the government contribution from the national and also the subnational budgets. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Karima. Let's go straight over to Balarabi for your perspectives, achievements, successes. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. I hope you can hear me very well. So first of all, in terms of Nexus, I will say that at present, Niger has not formally implemented a Nexus approach to nutrition. Although Nexus related aspect has been taken into account in the implementation of its nutrition policy, that is the Niger nutrition policy. This has not been documented, although there are some interventions that addresses development, peace, and humanitarian issues simultaneously. Niger has a comprehensive Nexus approach that is not specifically focused on nutrition. So among the results that have been achieved, we have the development of a roadmap for the operationalization of the Nexus approach in Niger. We have also the establishment of a high-level tripartite technical committee within the Ministry of Humanitarian Action, the then Ministry of Humanitarian Action. In 2021, we also elaborated an action plan for this tripartite committee, technical committee, which was accompanied with a budget. We have also the completion in 2024 of a baseline study that maps the existing political, institutional, and organizational financial landscape in relation to the implementation of and promotion of the Nexus approach in Niger. So in terms of success, we can see that you can say that we have a strong culture of multi-sectoral coordination, which is a very huge advantage in implementing Nexus approach in the country. We have also, in terms of success, the use of evidence-based or scientific data to elaborate guidance note, policy brief, which was developed, for example, by NIPIN to influence the decision making. And finally, in terms of success, we can say we have the willingness of our partners to trial the Nexus approach in Niger. That's why, as now we are in the process of revising the nutrition policy 2017-2025, we are trying to make it more Nexus sensitive. That's we are trying to integrate the Nexus approach in that policy we are revising. We, in terms of challenge, I can say the main challenge is the failure to formally take Nexus approach or aspect into account during the elaboration of the 2017-2025 nutrition policy. In addition, there's the issue of funding, the predominance of humanitarian funding over the development funding, and also as every Sahelian state, we are facing also security issues. So that's why I can say, Mr. Chris, from here. Over.
Thanks very much, Balarabi, and to all three of you. Let's move on to the next question now. We've been here in Addis the last few days. We've had this country learning exchange, a lot of interaction and discussion going on between the three countries. What are the key lessons learned that have come out of this event for each of you? And what are some of the key actions that you want to implement to take those lessons and turn them into action and impact in your own countries? Karima, let's go to you first.
Thank you so much. So it was very obvious that the leadership aspect is very critical, and we have learned that the high-level political and technical leadership is very crucial. However, it's only enabled by committing technical and financial resources. So this is actually what would build the leadership at the national level, is by this commitment from our partners to the process of building leadership at the country level, at all levels, from national to subnational level. And this will contribute to enhancing the alignment with the national priorities, which requires the shifting of power and decision-making to the government to better lead and efficiently utilize the resources. And our action point or plan actually is linked to this, is for us as Yemen delegate to focus when we are back home on leveraging this high-level political commitment to nutrition through the Nexus approach by conducting high-level political learning events and also visits, whether it is at the national level to mobilize the commitment and the domestic resources, or through the South-South learning opportunities that we hope that we will receive from our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karima. Let's go to Balarabi. Your lessons learned from this week and how you're going to take those and implement them back home.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Chris. Donc, the main lesson we drew from this learning exchange is the need for a strong national leadership in multi-sectoral coordination, alongside with a sense of accountability among all stakeholders and at various levels. So when back to the country, we aim to implement a robust multi-sectoral coordination system in the future through the revision of the nutrition policy and its action plan, which will be now centered focus on the new Nexus UDP, Humanitarian Development and Peace. We also aim at implementing a transparent financial monitoring system for multi-sectoral nutrition intervention at all levels, with the help of the other stakeholders. Over to you, Chris.
Dr. Sisay.
Yeah, thank you so much. In terms of the lessons that we have learned from this triple nexus can be operationalized in different contexts using different. In Ethiopia, we are using the Sakota Declaration platform to operationalize the nexus. And in Yemen, they are using the National Nutrition Action Plan, and now Niger, they are using also the policy framework to influence the nexus operationalization. So context is very important for the nexus operationalization. The second thing that we have learned is, I think, having very strategic technical partners to provide long-term technical assistance is very critical for a country-led nexus operationalization. For us, having N4D, ACF, and also the ECAN supported, the Kingdom of the Netherlands supported Right to Grow project, as well as also currently SOS working with us, has been a very critical asset for us to get a very long-term technical assistance in the nexus operationalization. The third one is, I think, in terms of programming, Nexus approach could be programmed both top-down through policy guidelines programs, but also it requires also bottom-up by understanding the various contexts in the countries and also conducting a context assessment and need analysis. And finally, in terms of our actions, what we have learned is we need to document the lessons and also the experiences that we learned in the past years in nexus operationalization in Ethiopia, while we are also conducting the pilot studies. And also, of course, continue this kind of south-to-south learning exchange to get also more learning from other countries, as well as also we share our experiences to other countries. I thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sisay. Let's move on then to our third area of discussion. Having made these achievements, having achieved so much, but still facing some of the challenges that you have to accelerate progress on a nexus approach, what is some of the key areas of support that you're looking for from your partners at a national level, and global levels to help you accelerate progress? And of course, this question leads on to the next panel discussion with our guests from the Sun Movement Secretariat, the Global Nutrition Cluster, Dr. Shams in Afghanistan, and Angela from FCDO in London. What are some of the key messages that, particularly for them, on how the Sun Movement, the Global Nutrition Cluster, support your efforts? Balarabi, let's go to you first.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So in terms of support, I will first of all say we need a comprehension of the partners. We want them to ensure that their interventions are aligned with our national policies, our strategies and priorities by strengthening the national ownership and the leadership of this approach. We also expect from the partners at any level to provide a coordinated technical and financial support to accelerate the implementation of priority nutrition intervention. And the third point, I will say that we also need support in the simplification and harmonization of funding mechanism to improve efficiency, flexibility, and the rapid allocation of resources. That's what I can say we are expecting from our partners. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. And let's go straight over to Karima for your reflection by partners to support you in Yemen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. At the country level, we would hope to see the alignment from our partner to the government-led initiative by supporting the leadership building process and the commitment to the implementation of the MSNAP at the national level and also the district level MSNAPs. And this could be through the engagement of all actors at the national, subnational level into the governance structure as well as the implementation of the MSNAP. For the regional actors, and I can see that it's not very strong, nutrition is not strong in our region. So we hope to see regional nutrition initiatives that can be the engine for change and to leverage the high-level political commitment in Yemen and in many other countries in the region. For the global support, we would hope to see the SUN global support system as well as the global humanitarian system channeling more technical and financial support and commitment to Yemen and to support the implementation of the MSNAP, especially what we call the accelerator program, the thematic and geographical ones, and also to support the development of country-to-country learning tools as well as south-to-south exchanges. So we hope to get everyone engaged in this very practical MSNAP that we have in place. Thank you.
Thanks, Karima. Dr. Sisay, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I think in terms of the stakeholders' engagement and support for next operationalization, speaking to three groups, national stakeholders, regional stakeholders, and the global partners. In terms of the national stakeholders, we have already mobilized a wide range of partners, government sectors, and also the SUN networks to take part in this endeavor. So what we will call upon our national stakeholders is to strengthen their technical support for Nexus nutrition-centric HDP triple Nexus operationalization in Ethiopia, and also expand that the pilot we have started and also operationalization in a number of waradas. The second thing is a number of partners have already started investing on this. So we also recommend for them to incorporate the Nexus in their country strategies, as well as also resource mobilization plans, proposals, as well as concept notes, so that they could also support the national operationalization aligned to our national priorities. The third for our national stakeholders is to actively engage in the technical working groups, as well as also coordination platforms that we have already established for Nexus operationalization. For our regional stakeholders, we have already an experience of learning exchange through the Anglophone, for instance, SUN Secretariat platform in our region. Then we could also facilitate the Nexus exchange learning and also Nexus visits in our region. That is the first one. And also, of course, the regional stakeholders could also support us in documentation of experiences. We have currently also started documentation for Sakota Declaration. So this support could also be extended for Nexus, as well as also they could also mobilize TA based on the country priorities. For our global partners, similar to the regional stakeholders, they could mobilize TA based on the country priorities. But most importantly, because of their reach and also network, they could also support us in resource mobilization for nutrition-centric HDP triple nexus operationalization in the member countries, as well as also because of their engagement with donors and others. They could also support us in advocacy and communication so that the donors could also include the nutrition-centric HDP triple nexus in their strategies, as well as also drive their future investment. I thank you.
Thanks very much, Karima, Dr. Sisay, Balarabi. You've given us so much to think about there and a lot for our second panel discussion to pick up on. Carmel asked if I could give a little bit of a summary of what's come out of this panel discussion from a country perspective. Clearly, all three countries, Ethiopia, Niger and Yemen, are quite different contexts and are also at different stages of strengthening multi-sectoral nutrition policies and plans, and at different stages of integrating nexus approaches to nutrition into those policies and plans and their implementation. However, there have been some key common issues, I think, arising this week and from our discussion just now. I think you've emphasized how high-level political commitment in each country is absolutely essential for driving forward a nexus approach.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris, and thanks to our country presenters, Dr. Sisay Balarab and Karima. It's genuinely exciting to hear about country-led progress around nexus for nutrition in Ethiopia, Niger and Yemen, and the commitment and vision for progress you've outlined in your work plans going forward. I think it also focuses the mind to hear with such clarity from you about country-specific and common challenges that you face in implementing a nexus approach embedded in the multi-sector plan. We're very fortunate to have with us now a panel made up of 4 individuals who occupy important roles in the global support system for countries. In no particular order, we have Dr. Shams from Afghanistan, who's a member of the SUN ExCom and currently working with WFP in Afghanistan as Deputy of Human Capital Development Unit and as the nutrition lead. We also have Angela Spilsbury, who's the Nutrition Policy Team Leader at FCDO, Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in the UK. We have Colleen Emery, a long-term colleague of ours who is currently the Global Nutrition Cluster Operation Teams Coordinator, which is hosted in Canada by ACF. And last but not least, we have Dr. Joanne Raisin, who is the Director of the Sun Movement Secretariat. Now, we asked our panelists to prepare themselves as much as they could to answer the following question. And the question is this: has anything that you've heard from the country presentations given you any additional ideas about how SUN, the GNC, and other global actors can enhance their support to country-led efforts to operationalize multi-sector nutrition policies and plans in fragile settings? I think we've already heard a number of thoughts and ideas on this from our country learning exchange colleagues. So I would now like our panelists to try their very best to stick to 5 minutes to answer this question based on what you've heard. And given how late it currently is in Afghanistan, we thought we would give Dr. Shams the courtesy to kick this off. And after Dr. Shams, we will hear from Angela, followed by Colleen, and finally Joe. So over to you, Dr. Shams.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, allow me to congratulate N4D, the colleagues from Yemen, Niger, and Ethiopia for this successful event on this exchange learning. I tend to agree with all what was suggested and recommended by the country teams because, yes, from Afghanistan, I really see that they are really important topics for a country. But when it comes to the fragile context, let's always remember when UN donors or global support systems, they want to support the fragile countries, there are two elements that we should always remember. First, fragile countries or contexts, they tend to have, they are exposed to risk and multiple shocks. And the second is that the capacity is limited to respond to those shocks. These two elements actually exacerbate the situation and creates a sort of self-reinforcing cycle of poverty and vulnerability. And let's keep this in mind when we are thinking or planning to support these type of contexts or countries. Now, I think global support to these countries is always available. Yes, to different degree, but we see that UN organizations, donors, and global cluster, nutrition cluster, they're always there and they support the countries. I would like to highlight a few points how these supports can be done or improved further, and then give you a few examples from Afghanistan. The first point is that I think global system support, or all of us, including the Sun Global Movement, we can help to bring everyone on the same page for nutrition. Nutrition has got multiple actors and stakeholders, including donors, NGOs, civil society, and the government. And I think the first and the decisive factor would be that we bring everyone on the same page for nutrition, particularly when it comes to the government. I think this is the role that we can play, because though governments are the owner, they have the ownership, they should lead the nutrition agenda, but then we all should be aligned. And as Karima mentioned, and Balarabi also, and other colleagues, Dr. Sisay, I think that is important factor. And especially now in the context of Afghanistan, which we are struggling, but we are also doing a lot on bringing everyone together and talking to the government that we all understand the nutrition issues. That could be done through different platforms, meetings, technical meetings. And from Afghanistan, what we did with the help of FCDO, I'm very happy to see also Angela here, that there was a sort of nutrition dialogues around, dialogues, conversation, series of those dialogues and conversation and nutrition, that everyone got actually to be on the same page. The second point is evidence generation, and I think colleagues also refer to it. What is characteristic to the fragile context? Because there is one is the evidence are limited. The second point, that they are not very well organized, actually disorganized. And the third point with the evidence generation is that they are not contextualized. I think this is something that global support system, that's it is SAN, it is nutrition cluster, donors, all of us, including the UN organizations, they can help to create or to create those evidences, but also support countries that they became the pioneer or the leading agents of creating their own evidences. In Afghanistan, we do that. There are various programs that now we are creating, contextualizing and creating local evidences. And I think that capacity should be established, that countries actually lead their own evidence generation agenda, present them, support them, and use them for their own planning. The third point could be also contextualization of global guidance. This is because at the global level, we have lots of guidance, guidelines, technical documents, and I think those guidance actually required to be contextualized. In Afghanistan, what we did recently, we contextualized the global, the WHO prevention and management wasting guideline, and I think donors, UN organization in particular, supported a lot this exercise, and now we have that Afghanistan wasting guideline. The other point is also evidence advocacy. I think that is something that we should really focus on, because that should be really based on the local evidence, but also supporting the local priorities. As Karima was also referring to it, that is really important, and I think this is the area that we can support a lot. We also mentioned, and colleagues also refer to financing, flexible financing, funding. I think this is really a key factor. But we already know that funding is declining. The situation is not good, particularly for the nutrition sector. I think there is opportunity that when we bring everyone together, we can also tap into the other innovative financing schemes, like including the private sector. And these days, actually, we are talking UN, lots of donors are talking to the government of Afghanistan, but also to other stakeholders, how we can really bring in the private sector or other innovative financing initiatives to support nutrition. So I do agree. I see the room and opportunity a lot for collaboration, but I think we should think we should not do, I mean, there is no time to do business as usual. We have to really be innovative, but together. This is my last point that I want to make. All of us, UN, donors, NGOs, partners, and the governments should be together, that we can take forward the nutrition agenda and really get outcomes that we want them. I will stop there, Jeremy, and I will be very happy to respond later on if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shams. That's brilliant. And if we could move on straight away to Angela.
Hi there. Yes, no, thank you very much. I mean, I think firstly, thank you to all the countries for sharing your incredibly valuable experiences. And I think we really hear you when you say that, you know, government leadership is key. It's key that partners align against your objectives and priorities, and that they're also enabled by the provision of financing and technical assistance. And then we're all held accountable for the delivery of those priorities. So I think that is absolutely critical. I mean, I suppose as part of that, there are kind of four things that I feel really that we as partners should be able to help you with and want to help you with. One is about supporting the kind of context-specific analysis and malnutrition drivers. So I think often the nutrition plans often struggle at the point of implementation because they're based on some fairly broad kind of assumptions which don't necessarily kind of actually reflect the realities on the ground, whether it be a particular crisis affected area or at the subnational level. So I think, you know, the work that Yemen and Ethiopia talked about doing really kind of local level understanding of the context and the drivers of malnutrition are absolutely critical, because then we can make sure that the response is much more tailored to that. Secondly, it's about strengthening the evidence and the data, which we've heard from lots of people, I think, today about, you know, having a strong national information system which can really enable you to adapt your programs and response based on learning and the changing context. I think this is particularly vulnerable when you're in a fragile state where the context is moving very quickly. So unless we have those systems that can pick up those changes, pick up those rising needs, we could continue using our very precious resources doing an intervention which maybe is no longer relevant. So I think having that evidence, having this, you know, evidence-based decision-making, planning, you know, making it inform allocations of resources and technical capability is absolutely critical. The third area, I think, as many people have said already, is about strengthening the systems, but making sure that they can be flexible so that they can meet, you know, any raising needs or changing needs, and that they can also be informed by early warning systems. So I think, again, as I've said, you know, nutritional plans are most vulnerable in fragile settings where demands could increase sharply or change very dramatically. And often our systems really aren't that able or agile to be able to respond. By embedding kind of early warning functions into the nutritional information systems, this can help establish clear triggers for when additional support service delivery is needed. It can help the kind of surge of additional capacity into certain areas and enable a much more kind of timely and coordinated and effective response. And then I think lastly, which is a very good point, I think, taken from Niger and Ethiopia and Yemen, which, you know, as a donor, I think, you know, we are very responsible for, is about the funding mechanisms that exist do not help the nexus at the moment. Donors tend to silo themselves into humanitarian and development funding, and the two never meet. And actually, most donors have different, or parts of their government, bilateral donors have different parts of their government managing those two different funds. At least in the UK and the FCDO, we manage both of that, those types of money. But I think still the funding mechanisms, the way they're set up, does not help that nexus. So countries need to be able to access financing that can prevent nutrition, can build resilience to shocks before they happen. These financing mechanisms need to be a lot more simple, a lot more kind of transactional light. They need to be accessible, and they need to be able to kind of invest in the long-term system strengthening and information systems that you need. And they need to be coordinated and complement, but not necessarily replace kind of humanitarian mechanism. So there just needs to be a bridging, a kind of mechanism to bring them all together. One mechanism that I would like to mention is the Child Nutrition Fund. Now, this is just one example, but it is an example where actually governments can use it to access matched funding from a diverse range of donors, including philanthropists and private sector, to help scale up priority nutritional services and systems. And this can be done, this is mainly for kind of a more development setting rather than a purely humanitarian response, but it can help bridge that humanitarian development continuum and hopefully provide government with that flexibility that they need to bring in the resources and the capability, the technical capability they need to operationalize their kind of commitments and their plans on nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Very clear, and some great recommendations there. Okay, Colleen, over to you and some GNC perspectives, Global Nutrition Cluster perspectives, perhaps.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. And I would just want to start by thanking the panelists on the earlier panel for sharing your country experiences with us today. You really provided some rich insights into the work you have done and also recommendations on the way forward. I heard three things from you that I want to speak to. The first was the need for having responsive technical support. And when I say responsive, I mean to have mechanisms that can be available when you have identified technical needs where you perhaps do not have the expertise in-house. And so I think we have some of those that exist within our global system now, within the GNC and other spaces within SUN too. But I think we need to make sure that we are able to maintain these things going forward, because we know that there are always new areas in nutrition where things like cash and voucher assistance, anticipatory action for nutrition, MAMI, for example, supporting infants and mothers. Those are things that we have been seeing within my work at the GNC, where there's been country level requests for us to support development of national guidelines. So I just want to iterate that I think there is a place for global actors to be able to support and align with needs at the country level for technical support. The second piece that I did hear you speak about was the need to strengthen the technical capacity of your implementing partners at a country level. And something that we have been working on here at the GNC is really a combined package of technical support that looks at not only the technical nutrition capabilities of local actors, but also looks at their broader organizational capacity. So things like human resources management, project management, proposal development, things that these local actors really need in order to have a sustainable future. So I think when we're thinking of technical support for actors in nutrition, we need to think broader, and we need to come together with a combined package of support. I think the second thing, the third thing that I want to mention is I really feel that global actors have an opportunity to use our existing platforms to elevate the work of local and national actors at the country, to facilitate some of this experience sharing between countries. And I think that will help with advocacy efforts, with financing efforts. And I think thirdly, I want to say that at a global level, I still very much feel that we are speaking to humanitarian actors in nutrition over here and more development actors over here, and we need to address that. I think we have made some progress with N4D along with SUN. We have a working group, the Humanitarian-Development-Peace Nexus working group. which is housed under us at the GNC. But I think we need to really invest in that space and really make that the place where we can come together and work together. I think, Jeremy, I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you for sticking to the 5 minutes, and the same goes to Angela and Dr. Shams. Okay, Joe, over to you.
Maybe I can be quicker because everybody's said everything that I was going to say, so that's good. So thank you very much. And I think this is a really important discussion as we move to operationalize SUN 4.0 for the movement. And in particular, because 47 of SUN's 67 countries are classified as being within a fragile context, and they make up over half the world's humanitarian population, with over 24 countries in IPC4 and 4 in 5. So this is such an important point. And the ability for these countries to operationalize multi-sectoral policies and plans are limited by their high dependency on external aid, particularly humanitarian aid, which is short-term, with about less than 5% of funding coming from national budgets. So they are extremely vulnerable to the ODA cuts, and it is really important at this time to begin the shift. I think the unpredictable financing has been a problem that comes with it. Might save lives, good in humanitarian context, but it doesn't build the kind of systems that the countries need to attract diverse funding, which is what you need to really deliver on the nexus. And I think one of the things that that was touched on earlier was about the ownership of the problem. So who owns this? Who owns this problem? And a lot of the time in the humanitarian system, that has gone with an external system and building humanitarian structures. And I think as SUN, we have a part to play in building and supporting accountability, building up civil society and communities' expectations from their government to address this issue, but also government's accountability to respond. So that's the two sides of the nexus, I think. And as SUN, we'll have an important part to play around the advocacy. So really making sure that we're looking for support for predictable financing for predictable problems, and just being clear that most of the SUN countries' problems are predictable and chronic in nature, and making sure that we're giving space for building the kind of systems that is not happening at the moment as the ODA space contracts. And I think there's been good examples where this has happened well before, and what donors have invested in before. And I'm picking out the Ethiopian productive safety net as an example where initially 7.2 million people were taken out of the emergency system and placed under multi-year safety net support. And we can see the same for the Kenya hunger safety net system. So there is a precedent for transitioning huge numbers of people out of emergency relief. I think it's probably good that we remind people of the Grand Bargain commitments that run up to the end of 26, where there is strong commitment to localization and multi-year assistance, both of which are important to deliver the nexus. And at country level, some we need to be supporting the coordination and promoting stronger links between the SUN platforms, humanitarian clusters and national systems. And I think Colleen touched on this when we talk about the GNC and SMS collaboration as a good foundation to build on, connecting focal points and cluster coordinators at country level. But probably more needs to be done, and Angela also talked about it, in bringing in civil society and organizations and community actors, because they're the first responders and probably the most trusted responders in any emergency. So this is work we've been doing, supporting Yemen to establish civil society alliance, and that same work is now underway in Sudan. So we'd like to be a Sun, sort of facilitating support to get more work into subnational clusters. And I think everybody raised it, technical assistance, where for the Sun countries, the fragile states have not received anywhere near their fair share of technical support, and we'll be trying to address that through the operationalization of Sun 4.0 and really trying to build on the country experiences around the Nexus and do peer-to-peer learning across the networks. And I think just to finish on the financing aspect, it's not just the silos between humanitarian and development that exist at the moment. There is just huge fragmentation of funding into various vertical funds and into cherry-picked results areas that make it almost impossible for the fragile states to be able to make good sense of or have the capacity to engage in the sort of minefield of the Green Climate Fund, the Environmental Fund, I'm sorry to say, Angela, but also the Child Nutrition Fund, which does require matched funding. And to make sense of all this, maybe we need to be doing much more advocacy to have these initiatives come in against, say, one sort of multi-sectoral plan for nutrition. And probably, maybe my last point is, we talk about all these differences and the fragmentation, but at community level, communities do not distinguish between whether their money came from humanitarian or for climate or for development. It all comes together and is supposed to have an impact that improves household and community nutrition and food security, and we should make it easier to access and make sure our impact sits there. Thank you. I think I was probably talked too long.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jo. That was really helpful. So I mean, it's great to hear such overlap and alignment between what our countries have been telling us in terms of their support needs and what our panel is thinking around how best to provide support, and the overlap is in the realms of technical assistance support, in financial flexibility, and breaking up and addressing the fragmentation of financing, South-South learning, supporting national nutrition information systems. There is so much there, and we won't do it justice on this webinar. However, I'm going to hand over to Carmel now, and we are going to cherry pick, I guess, some of the questions that have been coming in and address them to the appropriate person. Over to you, Carmel.
Thanks very much, everybody. Well, this is your chance to keep posting your questions, and I want to, if it's okay with you, Dr. Sisay, I would like to send one question directly your way over in Addis, and this has come from a nutrition specialist from RTI International. I think it's a really good question, and it basically is summarized as, you know, given fragile contexts have periodic and severe funding interruptions, which will indeed disrupt the pace and scale of nutrition programs, what strategic approaches are being used, let's say in Ethiopia, to align peace building system and the actors with nutrition? So what perhaps Dr. Sisay, can you share what you might have learned already about how to bring the peace building sector in? Because it is the hardest bit of it, I think, the HDP, that P of the nexus. I think we've all talked about this in the past. How do we engage with the peace system and peace actors? So, Dr. Sisay, sorry to throw this right at you, but would you mind responding? And of course, any other colleagues, Karima and Balarabe also. But go ahead, Dr. Sisay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carmen. Yeah, based on the situation analysis and stakeholder engagements that we had, we did two things. One is how do peace integrated into development, emergency, and also, of course, the peace actions. One of the things that we found was many of the development and emergency responses does not really consider the peace component, even if the challenge has come from the conflict. And that has really created a huge gap to address the peace need, even if we are implementing a development or an emergency program. The other aspect is also in terms of the peace building stakeholders. There were very few stakeholders that are capable of how do the peace action could contribute toward improving the development gains, as well as also preventing future crises. So I think, as I have indicated in my presentation earlier, was there is a very limited capacity in terms of incorporating the peace action within the development in the humanitarian space, as well as also in terms of the competencies of addressing the peace need. So in terms of the operational plan and also operational guide, as well as also implementation roadmap, we have considered the conflict sensitivity in our responses, as well as also identifying the contextual issues that really exacerbate the challenge that the community will see in terms of the challenges. Some of them are, for instance, if we address through a multi-sectoral resilience program, that will also contribute toward this peace. Flexibility of our interventions to address the root causes of conflict. In some cases, some of the conflict would arise, for instance, shortage of water or similar kind of things. So if we really address the root cause of the conflict, that will also address the challenges of the peace. But specifically also building the institutional capacity in terms of the mainstreaming, peace building, and also conflict sensitivity into the humanitarian development, as well as also the peace action. So we are using that, and also we have developed a framework in terms of identifying which components need to be the priority in one context, considering the root cause of the challenge in those specific localities. So that's how we are addressing in our case, and also the operational guide as well as the implementation roadmap also provides a step-by-step process in terms of peace building as well as also conflict sensitivity response. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sisay. I knew you'd have a comprehensive answer to that. And it's great to hear. I think for all of us in the nutrition world, understanding the peace bit of the nexus is absolutely critical, and how we can work with that sector more effectively. I have another question which actually involves everyone sitting in Addis, but Karima, you mentioned the need in Yemen to have partners align with the multi-sector plans. I know that's been an area of considerable effort and activity in Yemen. I think it would be really helpful if you could just say a bit about how have you managed to get partners and donors to align. But I'd also like to hear from Balarabe and Dr. Sisay on that as well, because the alignment issue has come out very clearly in this webinar as a fundamental a fundamental area. And then perhaps we could then, from that, move and ask our global panel colleagues to perhaps speak to how the GSS or the global support system can also work more towards pushing for this alignment. But first of all, could I hand over to you, Karima, and then Chris, maybe you could work around the room with Bala and Dr. Sisay too. So over to you, Karima, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmel. Let me just explain one thing, that the alignment could be at whether the interventions, priorities, or the way of working. And we are so glad to see our partners from different actors aligning with the intervention level, with the priorities level. We still need to progress more on the ways of working. So we hope that we will progress better, and we will get to the point where we also agree on the ways of working, as well as we have done with the interventions. So this is something that we build over time: communication and advocacy and understanding, and building trust between the government of Yemen, the different stakeholders and sectors in the government of Yemen, and their partners, donors, and other actors. So yes, the alignment, we are progressing very, very well at the level of interventions. And we're hoping for better alignment through the mechanisms, the governance structures, the monitoring and evaluation, accountability, and other issues. Thank you. I hope that I answered the question. Thank you.
Perhaps also we could just briefly hear from Bala and Dr. Sisay.
Yes, Balarabi.
Yeah. Okay, maybe Dr. Sisay can go back.
Yeah, maybe Carmen, let me go ahead. I think in terms of the partners alignment, I can say a few things. One is, I think, having a very clear national policy guideline and also nutrition action plan. For instance, in Ethiopia, we have the food and nutrition strategy and the Sakota declaration. It also embedded the Nexus approach. So I think working through a common national framework is very essential. Currently, for instance, for Nexus, we have the Nexus implementation guide, as well as also operational guide and also implementation roadmap. So having a common national platform policy guidance is important. The second one is, I think, to ensure alignment, creating a very strong government-led national platform is also essential. In Ethiopia case, we have the multi-year plan, as well as also we do an annual plan, which also align our work, our plan, and what we want to do every year through the national government and also partners consultation and also alignment meetings. So that will also will help. The third part of, I think, in terms of the partners alignment is through performance review. So how do partners are also contributing towards the national target, the national goals, and also the national agenda? I think that's the way it will help. We have the annual review meeting for nutrition stakeholders, and also we have also the technical working groups that also review the progress of what the government is doing, also what the partners are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sisay.
Balarabi will come in.
Okay, thank you, Carmel. And I will also take this opportunity to maybe answer at the same time one question on in the chat. So in terms of alignment, I think this is possible when the partners and also the government are sufficiently sensitized and aware the importance of development intervention. And when government elaborates strategy, policy, and programs that take into account the development aspect, I think we need also to sensitize the partner to align with this policy and this strategy that the government has put in place. Thank you.
And
Thank you
Balarabi,
very
could you
much, Bala.
want to respond to something in the chat?
Yes, because in the chat they were asking about are there some more or less practical entry point for making nutrition response more anticipatory and preventive? So that's why I say maybe this answer can take into account, because what I was saying that when you build strategy and programs that are, let me say, development more sensitive, more focused, and we sensitize the partners to align with this policy and strategy, maybe we can, let's say, be more anticipatory in terms of malnutrition prevention.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Carmel, back to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone in Addis yet again. I wonder if I might just, I don't mind who from the global panel responds, but I wonder if you've had any thoughts about what you might do differently tomorrow to foster this greater alignment that we keep hearing about. Like, what in practice can we do from the global support system to encourage that good practice way of working around alignment under national leadership and national plans? So I don't know, Mike, who would like to take that on, but please, over to you, someone from the global panel.
I'm happy to come in if that's useful.
That would be marvellous. Thank you, Angela. Thank you.
Not that I have the answers, but I can say
no,
what we're doing anyway.
Exactly.
So our ministers have made it very, very clear to us that they want us to partner with countries and follow country leadership, and that's very much their position. And when they're looking at our programs and our proposals of what we're going to be doing, that's the kind of framework that they're, the lens, if you like, that they're looking at it. So we've had 3 kind of steers of how our ministers want us to do development differently. And that's one, developing long-term mutually respectable partnerships with countries. So we're moving to a 3-year funding cycle, where previously we've been on quite a short 1-year funding cycle. And it's very much about, responding to countries' needs and making sure our programs are responding to countries' needs rather than us imposing our needs. The second one is moving away from service delivery to system strengthening. And I think over the last few years, we have tended to move towards service delivery a lot more. And it's now trying to swing back much more to maybe how we were doing development 10 years ago, where we were really trying to build up those long-term systems that can flex and respond to needs of the country. And then the last one is about being an investor, not a donor. And this is partly obviously because our ODA has reduced, but it's also in recognition that actually countries want investment. They don't want just short-term aid. And so it's about bringing in more diverse, different sources of funding, like the private sector, like philanthropists, helping governments themselves through our kind of World Bank IDA support, develop their own economies and their own fiscal stability to enable them to provide the services to their people. And then I think another really important element from the donor point of view is being transparent about what we actually do and where we're spending our money. And that's a standard that our ministers are holding us to, and our parliament's holding us to as well, that we continue. I think as a donor, we're generally quite good at this, but we need to continue and always improve our transparency about really publishing exactly what we're doing, where and how much. But I suppose all of what can help us as a donor to do this better. And I think really what's helpful is when you've got a really strong government vision. So a very clear vision from the government of what they want and why. And then, good, strong evidence-based policies and a really robust kind of M&E framework mechanism with a good information system that we can then get behind Because I think if you've got that clear vision and those evidence-based policies and a mechanism that will monitor its effectiveness, that enables us to say, well, this is a good place for us to put our UK taxpayers' money, you know, and invest in this area and work with this partner, this government, to deliver, because we'll know that it's going to have impact, or we'll know that the mechanisms will be there to show us whether or not it is being effective. So it helps us with our own accountability to our taxpayers as well.
Okay, Angela, that was very comprehensive. Thank you so much. I'm very aware we're literally running down the clock now. We've got 5 minutes, and I want to move on to just a few thoughts on next steps and then close the webinar on time. Everybody that knows me in my facilitation role knows I'm very strict on timing and sticking to it. There are so many great comments and questions that have come in. I want to reassure everybody that has posted comments, observations, questions. We're not going to ignore them at the end of this webinar. We're going to pick them up through the next steps, actually. So please don't be disheartened if we haven't come to your question or comment, but I want to thank you for those. And I know there's been some generous offers coming from colleagues in Niger to support some of the processes we've been hearing about during this webinar. So thank you for that. I want to just start by obviously thanking our country colleagues for sharing their very frank and constructive learnings. We haven't heard all of it, but we've been party to some of the highlights, and to extend very, very great thanks to our global colleagues who sat on the panel and really had to respond very off the cuff to listening to what countries were saying in the here and now. So thank you all for that.